I used to attend the Darien School District in Connecticut during my middle school and high school years. It was a fairly wealthy district, and the students were given a lot of field trip opportunities. I was part of the chorus, and every year we would go on at least 1 or 2 optional trips as a group. The year this happened, when I was a sophomore, we traveled to Woodloch Pines Resort in Pennsylvania. The bus ride took several hours. I was with my friend Landon. We were going to be sharing a room. From the moment we arrived, we could tell the place was going to feel very empty. It was November, so the weather up there was pretty cold. We had 3 days planned for the trip, and there were 4 chaperones. They did not follow us constantly. We only had to let them know which activities we would be doing. The first day went well. Landon and I, along with 2 girls we were close friends with, tried the go-karts, did some rock climbing, went swimming, and then ate dinner. After that, we returned to our room and hung out for a while. For context, not all of the students ended up with rooms near each other. Our room was on the ground floor, and there was a clear sliding door that looked out toward the lake down the hill. We went out again for a bit, then came back around 10 at night. We left the blinds open because the moon cast a cool reflection across the lake. We had no idea that was the start of something frightening. If I had to guess, I would say we spent about an hour tossing around in our beds, trying to get comfortable, occasionally talking, before Landon, whose bed was closer to the door, suddenly screamed. I had no clue what was happening, why he was yelling, or if he was messing around, until I turned my head toward the door. It looked like something from a horror film. A very tall, thin, older woman with long grayish hair was standing outside the door with her hands cupped around her face, trying to look into our room. The woman then walked off. Landon looked at me, probably waiting for me to move first so he would feel brave enough to get up too and chase after her. When we ran outside, she was nowhere to be seen. The cement walkway that passed each room of the building was completely empty. No one was on the grass, and no one was walking down the hill. But we both saw her clearly, so we knew we had not imagined it. The next day we did not mention it to the chaperones, but we told our 2 friends. When night came again after a full day of activities, we entered the room through the back door and made sure to close the blinds this time. Landon had fallen asleep before I did. I drifted off about 30 minutes after him. When I woke up, everything was completely silent. I could not tell if something had caused me to wake or if it just happened on its own. All I knew was that something felt wrong. I sat up and whispered Landon's name to check if he was awake. He did not respond, so I turned to the left out of instinct and curiosity to look at him, but I could not see him. Something was blocking my view of the other bed. I looked upward, and standing over my bed was the tall old woman. She stepped back twice and said, "Your back door was unlocked," before turning around and walking outside. I could not move at all, except for the shaking running through me. I woke Landon and told him what had happened. We locked the back door, closed the blinds again, and agreed to stay awake for the rest of the night. It was already 4 in the morning, so we were not missing much sleep. By 8 in the morning, we went to the dining hall to get breakfast. When we returned to the building where our room was and planned to tell our chaperones, we saw the old woman through the window of the room beside ours. She was on the bed with her hands folded, sitting straight and facing the door. Facing us. We ran to the front desk in the main lobby to report her to the staff instead of going to the chaperones. The strange thing was that nobody at the desk really seemed to know what to do about it. After a while, we convinced them to come with us to the woman's room. Inside, they found her sitting in the exact same way, and an older man was sitting on the other bed, looking up at them when they entered. The woman apparently had certain mental disorders, but the man also did not seem fully aware. There was something very unsettling about him, and they did not seem like the kind of people you would expect to see at a family-friendly resort. The staff refused to remove them like we hoped, so we went to our chaperones. To summarize, after a long argument between the chaperones and the staff, our trip had to end early, and we all went home. Landon and I were just relieved to get away from that place. When I was in the 4th grade, my class went on a field trip to a small rural zoo-type place that was about an hour from our school. I remember clearly that the sky was cloudy and the occasional raindrop would fall now and then. The zoo itself was on the smaller side, but it was fun for kids. It had a fair number of animal habitats, mostly with smaller creatures and nothing too unusual. There was also a large building. It was part of the zoo where taxidermied animals were displayed, along with other attractions that I cannot fully recall. To be honest, I was a bit strange during my elementary and middle school years. I would behave in odd, antisocial ways, and both my teachers and my mom noticed it. For some reason, while we were exploring the building as a group, I decided to walk into one of the bathrooms without saying anything to the teachers. I finished what I needed to do, washed my hands, and stepped back into the hallway. Nobody was there. I walked down one of the hallways that we had not reached yet. I can still picture the dim, moody lighting and the deep red carpet under my feet. My 8-year-old imagination was running wild as I looked at all the stiff, lifeless animals that had once been alive behind the glass displays. I stopped moving when I noticed a man who looked like he was hiding behind a stack of chairs. I think I laughed because I thought he was playing around. He stepped out from behind the chairs and came toward me, asking where the group had gone. I said, "I do not know." He took my hand and told me to come with him. I guess I believed he was bringing me back to my class. He led me to an exit door, which opened to the back area of the building, near a couple of dumpsters, a few benches, and the woods. Once we stepped outside, his pulling suddenly became much rougher, and his hand tightened around my arm. He was dragging me toward the woods. I did not scream or call out for help, but I can still remember the sick feeling in my stomach, like I was so scared I might throw up. And a woman shouted at the top of her lungs. It was one of the teachers on the other side of the fence. The man immediately let go of me and ran straight into the trees. A few seconds later, several teachers rushed out of the exit door to the same side of the fence and pulled me back inside. They were yelling at me, yet at the same time they were trying to comfort me and hold on to me. They called my parents, and that was the end of the field trip. The owners of the place called the police. We all got back on the buses, and everyone headed home. As my bus rolled out of the parking lot, though, my sharp 8-year-old eyes spotted the man crouching in the woods near the road, hiding behind a branch and watching the buses go by. For some strange reason, I stayed quiet again. I was probably too shy back then, or just too shaken to speak. The other kids stared at me in a strange way for the rest of the ride. I did not care. I only hoped that man never managed to take an unaware young kid like I had been at that moment. Back in high school, I took a class about mysteries and mythology, or something similar. I cannot quite remember the exact name. It mostly focused on real-life mysteries and creepy phenomena. I was really into that kind of material. I was taking the class with a close friend, who I will call Ben for this story. Our teacher organized a field trip to a nearby abandoned village with a mysterious past. The village had been built in the early 1900s, but appeared to have been abandoned shortly after it was constructed. The bus ride there took about 20 minutes. All of us pressed our faces to the windows as we approached a crumbling, sketchy road cutting through dense forest. The road eventually opened into a clearing. We had arrived. We stepped out onto the cracked asphalt, with grass growing up through the breaks in the pavement. The surrounding grass came up to almost our knees. Then we saw the buildings. The tall, old brick structures with boarded-up windows gave off a truly chilling atmosphere. The teacher lined up all 20 of us, counted heads, and then led the way. The purpose of the trip was to put the skills we had been learning in class to the test, trying to figure out why the village might have been abandoned so long ago. Some of the buildings had holes in the walls that could be used to enter. There were also holes dug into the ground near several buildings, apparently to reach the basements, which made the place feel even creepier. One building, however, stood taller than all the rest. It caught my attention the most. While the teacher guided the group toward the village church, Ben and I decided to sneak off to see if we could find anything interesting. As we approached the tallest building, we noticed a hole in the ground by the back door, which had been sealed shut. Inside the hole was a ladder leading down to a concrete floor below. We exchanged a glance and knew we had to go down. Ben climbed first, followed by me. Fortunately, this was around the time Apple had started putting flashlights on their phones, so we had a source of light. It was eerie down there. A few empty beer bottles were scattered around. There was a single graffiti tag on the wall, and dusty wooden planks were strewn across the floor. There was a wooden staircase that led up into complete darkness, since all the windows and doors above had been sealed shut. We had already gone inside the building, so we decided to go up the stairs as well. I went first, and with each step, the creaking of the 100-year-old wood made me feel like I might fall through every single plank. Ben followed right behind me. This floor of the building was very cramped. There seemed to be a number of openings leading into smaller rooms. It was so dark inside that you would never guess it was daytime. Ben and I were starting to feel genuinely uneasy and agreed to head back outside. Just then, a noise came from one of the tiny rooms, like a large rock being dropped onto concrete. Normally, we would have run immediately, but Ben and I froze. We locked eyes for a moment before slowly tiptoeing to the opening of the room. We shone our lights inside and then bolted. We ran down the stairs and climbed the rusty ladder back to the outside. We caught up to the rest of the group, out of breath. We did not tell anyone what had happened to avoid getting in trouble. One of our classmates asked what was wrong. We told him that we had snuck into one of the buildings, and when we shined our lights into a room, we saw 3 people standing maybe 10 feet from the doorway. They were facing us in a strange formation, as if they had been waiting there. As we continued to follow the group, we kept an eye on the tall building we had entered, and before we left, we spotted a face at one of the higher windows that had not been boarded up. We never mentioned this to the teacher, because we were afraid of getting in trouble. We had no idea what to think. Were those just homeless people living there? Were they gang members hiding out? Ben scared me with his theory. He said they were ghosts of the people who had once lived in the village. Even now, I cannot get the image of those 3 figures standing there so calmly, just staring at us the moment we peeked inside that doorway. I may go back to that village one day, just to see if I can prove Ben's theory wrong.